Good morning. Welcome to our WeZoom Israel is Hands-On for Ukraine with personal stories. It's not a coincidence that we are having this Zoom today during Pesach, a holiday of freedom that inspires us to work for a world where every person is free and safe. At WITSO, we work tirelessly to spread kindness, and today, when children and families in Ukraine are falling victims of the terror, WITSO is here for them. Our WITSO federations around the world are assisting Ukrainian refugees in their countries in different ways. In Israel, we have 68 kids from the Nahale program from Ukraine. They were there before the war started. You can imagine how distressed these kids were, since they didn't know when they would be able to see their parents. Currently, we are about to receive between 50 and 70 more kids, and some of them already arrived, and WITSO is providing them with all the necessary psychological, education, and social tools so they can, feel safe in this new environment. Now, I would like to introduce Gina Rafael, WITSO California chairperson, who will introduce our guest speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Goldie. It's an honor to be here today with everyone. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor Rechkiman and Tamar Rechkiman. Born and raised in Mexico City, after medical school, he made Aliyah and started a residency in surgery after he specialized in plastic surgery in Jerusalem. Then he traveled to Canada to do a fellowship in breast reconstruction and microsurgery at the medical center at Montreal. Today, Mayor works at Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba, Israel, in advanced microsurgical reconstruction surgery and breast reconstruction to deter cancer. Tamar Rechkiman, born and raised in Israel, she has a degree in behavioral sciences from Ariel University. She is a registered nurse and attended nursing school at Sheri Sedek in Jerusalem. Today, Tamar works at the Emergency Room Medicine Trauma Center at Soroka Medical Center as an emergency nurse. Tamar and Mayor are married with 3 kids, Harel, Shai, and Hila, and live in Beersheba, Israel. It's my great pleasure to welcome both of them today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome and the introduction. We're very glad for this opportunity to talk to everybody from the other side of the world. So we prepare a presentation so we can speak about our experience. As Goldie said, this is a festival of freedom, and we felt a part of a little exodus that happened to part of our people in these hard times in Ukraine. So we'll start. Everybody can see the presentation? Yeah. Okay, so first of all, not everybody knows what Israel is doing for Ukraine. Actually, I have some friends in Ukraine who were asking me why Israel is not getting involved and doing anything. So for those who don't know, actually, Israel has a lot of groups of help in Ukraine and in the surroundings of Ukraine, doing a lot of work. Well, a lot of work with a lot of people. It's just a few of the names that are working in Ukraine, inside, in the surroundings, and in Israel to take on the refugees that are coming here. And of course, you have heard of the Kochav Meir, the shining star, the field hospital named after Golda Meir, that she was born in Ukraine. And as you know, this is a field hospital helping inside Ukraine with doctors and nurses and staff from Israel. It's like a $6.4 million hospital that was built in there. And here is a map that you can see what's happening in the war in Ukraine. And you can see here in Moldova. Moldova is very near to Odessa and also from Kiev. So a lot of refugees are crossing the border closer to Moldova because it's closer than Poland or Hungary and Romania. So we went to a mission. It was a medical mission at Moldova in Chisinau. Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Actually, what it's funny, Moldova used to be a very, very Jewish place. In the 1900s, 43% of the population in Chisinau was Jewish. Then, after all the pogroms, and then World War II, today there are like 10,000 Jews. And most of the community was leadership today by Chabad that started in the 90s. But there are not a lot of Jewish community, but there is most of the missions, Israeli missions, come to Moldova because most of the refugees and the Jewish refugees come there today after the war. So me and my wife, me as a doctor and my wife as a nurse, were called by this guy in the picture with the glasses a day before, and he told me we need urgently a doctor or a nurse to go to Moldova to bring a plane with the sick people and Holocaust survivors. It's done by Zaka. Zaka, I don't know if you know what Zaka is. Zaka, it's an organization for rescue and identification of victims. And Zaka is doing today, is still working there in Moldova, helping, like normally what they do is they go after all the terrorist attacks to find the parts of the victims so they can be buried. But now Zaka are, regarding the war in Ukraine, they're doing a mission to help to bring sick people to Israel that can't come like in a regular plane. So after we prepared, we went to Moldova, and I put this picture, the guy in the middle, his name is Eliran. Eliran is a resident of mine in the hospital. I work at Soroka in Beersheba. And he's one of my residents that he was chosen to be in another mission in Moldova also. So we met there. And the reason I put this picture is just to show you that there were a lot of people and a lot of missions from Israel to help Jewish people. And as we were talking, like the most touching thing that we could see in all this chaotic scenario was that if you're Jewish, if you're going to be a refugee, it's better for you to be Jewish, because that's the only way you will make it. There was a lot of help for Jewish people. The other refugees were like no one's in the middle of a chaos and catastrophic area, refugees, and there were people from Israel gone to all the refugee camps looking for Jewish people to take them out and help them, medical staff and people to bring them to Israel. So here are just some pictures of one of the places where we could find refugees. Here is from the Jewish community. Our work was to go to hotels or any place that there were some refugees we have list to help to search for the people that was fit to fly, that they were sick but not that sick, so they were able to fly back to Israel. And we will go there. We have a paramedic with us from Zaka and a paramedic from Mada. She was speaking Madam Magen David Adon, that she could speak Russian, so we could identify and understand what's happening with who could fly and who couldn't fly. So we're here. You can see me and my wife in the middle, the Magen David Adon paramedic that speak Russian, and another guy from England. He was a guy from London that he heard that they needed help. He took a plane and he said, whoever who takes me to help, I will help them. So he's the guy who took us everywhere to see all the patients. Here we are in one of the hospitals. Here you can see the pictures of the hospital, like an Eastern European hospital. And we came to take one of the patients that we've taken our flight. The doctors were very kind. They explained us all the situations with the patients. And besides that, you can see here all the help. There is another synagogue that they had help, they're preparing for Shabbat. This was Friday when we were there. They're preparing for Shabbat, and you can see all the help, clothes, water, food. Every place the community converted to a place to help the refugees, hotels. Even there was a pub, an Irish pub that was at Sala, converted to a place to like a headquarters to help people. And then after we check all the patients, it came the date of the flights. The flight was supposed to be on Saturday night after Shabbat. So there were ambulances that pick up all the patients from all over. It took us 2 days to see each people that we were supposed to fly. They were all over Moldova and in the outsides of Moldova and of Kishinev. So we gathered there in the airport, and actually that was a hard experience to see that even though we were doing a legal flight with sick people with permits and passport, we waited like how much? 4 hours? At least 4 hours with sick people in the ambulance. I have to speak like, can we rush that? We have like people in pain. We have to treat them. And I just was wondering if this was like a legal mission. I just think what Israel have done during the past years, bringing Olim and people from all over the world in illegal missions and some Mossad operations. It's crazy to think about it. Anyway, after we got in the airport at the end, so yeah, that's important. Yeah. So we took out the patients. You can see we took every patient from the ambulance to the plane. And actually, this patient was a patient with a broken hip. And before the flight, we have a little bit of a dilemma, because they told us there's only just one place for one patient to lay down, 2 places for a semi-lying down, so you have to choose. And we had 3 patients with a broken hip and 1 patient that was paralyzed, and we needed like 4 places to lay down, and we didn't have. And when I was talking to the guy in charge from Saka, he told me, don't take pity of anyone, just take them home, because the one who stays here, he won't be able to go to Israel. Like, this is a chance. Even if he has pain, take him. So we do our best, and we took everybody. Here you can see we were taking them. This was a very painful for some of the patients, so we have to treat them, give some painkillers. And here you can see in the next picture that we put the same patient. He wasn't lying and he was in pain. We have to medicate him in the middle of the flight, and we also put a patient in the floor. They gave us like a special permission because there was no seatbelt there to take one of the patients on the floor so we can treat them. So after the delays, we flew all night. You can see this in this picture. We have 2 of the Holocaust survivors. This woman, besides me, is 100 years old. She had more energy than me. She stand up, went out from the airplane, and besides her is a 91 years old, also that we flew. They were one of the healthiest patients we had there. They were in very good shape. And after it was a 2.5 hour flight, but we got delayed. So at more or less like 6 in the morning, we arrived to the airport at Ben Gurion, and it was like in a movie. All the ambulances were waiting like plane crash. There were like 9 ambulances waiting for us. So we landed and we took down all the patients, and every patient each one went for different hospital that was arranged beforehand. And that was all our exodus. I want to also thank all the Zaka people There was this guy Eliezer who came with us. Well, yeah, I would say about a couple. It was a couple from Ukraine. They're actually, it's called Nachman and his wife Valerie. Nachman and Valerie, they were the guys from Zaka, like on the spot that they were like arranging all the operation. And they are former Israelis that are living in Ukraine, and they are themselves refugees. They went in the last, like in the starting of the war, they took people with them and then went to Moldova, and instead their kids live in Israel, and instead going to Israel like to rearrange or live a better life, they stayed in Moldova, in Kishinev, to keep working. Today I know that they rented a whole hotel in Kishinev, where they are doing like a mini hospital to triage patients to bring them to Israel. And something else you had? No. So that's the petit exodus we were part of. It was a very inspiring experience. Thank you. If anybody has questions, so please.
Thank you so much. Yes. Hold on. I don't know if anybody has questions, but I would like to ask you, why are you bringing so sick people and old people to Israel? Why do you think? What is the mission?
First of all, there are refugees that need medical treatments, and they need to be treated. Now they are in a foreign country without citizenship, without insurance, without money. So if you leave them there, like for now, they have somewhere to stay. But in a few weeks, months, when everybody leaves, all the missions leave there, they will be alone with no help. So the only place we can treat them is to bring them home and give them like proper medical treatment.
Meir, are they Jewish or it makes no difference?
Ideally, they wanted to be everybody Jewish, but there were patients that there were like the relative is Jewish, like the husband is Jewish, and he already made Aliyah, so he asked them to bring them. So we have two patients like that were not actually Jewish, but they could come to Israel. But no, the main goal was to bring Jewish people. There were like favors that were asked from the Ministry of Interior to Zaka to bring specific patients.
And let me ask you something. These patients, for instance, the ones that have broken ribs or whatever, this was due to the situation, bombings, or or you don't know?
No. These patients were not war injured. There were patients that were chronically ill, and they escaped. Some of them, Zaka and themselves, they sent ambulances inside Ukraine to take them out to the border. And one of the guys was Benjamin, the guy from London that was with us. Actually, he went to the border. I remember the Shabbat we were checking patients, but this guy went to the border, 3 hours drive and 3 hours back to bring some people that came in an ambulance. So no war injuries. Most of them, or they didn't make it, or they're in hospitals in Ukraine.
So how many days in total were you there?
A days, we were Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Saturday night we came back.
Oh, wow.
3 very intensive days.
And I ask you, and what about their families? Are they alone in Moldova, or you can take a family member with you or not?
Yes, actually, part of them were having someone with them. Actually, we brought a couple, an old couple with their son. And the son is 50 years old. He lives in Kiev, and he suffered a stroke. So the parents that live in Israel went to Kiev before the war to help him, and they got stuck there because he suffered another stroke and he was paralyzed. So they stayed longer, and then the war started. So we brought them, the three of them, in the flight. So of course, we had some patients that we have to leave behind because we have 24 seats, and but what I was told that the people that stayed there, they were arranging the next flight for them to come over. Yeah, I see someone has a question. Judy?
I have a question. I have two questions, actually. First of all, what were you doing specifically at the time that you guys decided to go? What did you leave behind? What were you in the middle of something? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Actually, before that, when they called us to go, before that, we wanted to volunteer, and we wrote some people. Actually, the guy who called us, I told him, if you listen about something, let us know, we want to volunteer. And the day before they told us, the day before the flight, I was in the middle of surgery, and this guy called me, and he told me, you want to go tomorrow to Moldova for to bring some sick people? And I say, you know, I want to call my wife. I'm in the middle of surgery. And we knew this guy from before. So he called Tamar, and Tamar arranged for the, you know, the kids. We have 3 kids.
These were the big problem of everything.
So we sent them with my sister-in-law for Shabbat. And we left the next day in the morning. We have a big one, 17 years old. So they went to school and they picked them up, and we managed.
No, I think it's incredible. I know I speak on behalf of everyone. How selfless of you to simply drop everything you were doing and go and try to help, putting at their service, obviously, your professional skills. So thank you so much.
It was very rewarding, the feeling to being able to help in these circumstances.
I wanted to tell a little story that I know of somebody that they were, you know, how you give your egg and your husband put the sperm and then somebody else carries for you. So there's a story that they had a baby being carried by a Ukrainian woman, and in the middle of the whole situation, she gave birth to the baby. And I heard that Atsala traveled, got the baby, and brought it back home. So you hear a lot of interesting stories that are happening, that it's a very crazy world right now, and things that happened today that were never seen before. The baby is fine in Israel, but it was a great story, I think, a successful story. So you guys are very important to us all over, and you create miracles. So we thank you for everything you do.
So I have one more question. You said that the situation was very chaotic. Can you describe it a little bit more? Because we have seen so many, you know, on TV, you know, we have seen what's going on, but you saw it with your own eyes.
Yeah, well, we weren't in the war zone, but you will see buses of refugees coming and going from all the shelters where they were putting them. And we will go to hotels. The Jewish community will rent the whole hotel, like a 3-star hotel, to put Jewish people, and somebody will bring them food. It was chaotic because there were people that lost everything in one day. they remain with nothing. They have nothing. But the thing is that we saw like the hope they received when they got to a place and there was someone like waiting for them and helping them till they found the solution. Yeah, actually, they went to everywhere looking for them. And what I heard from my resident, that he worked from the first mission that arrived there, he told me that they were looking for them. They went to the shelters and they found someone Jewish and they started, like a Jew knows as a Jew. Have you heard of somebody else? And they started connecting the dots. And after connecting the dots, they found like all the people and brought them to shelters and arranged. There was a lot of miscommunications, even between the missions. And I heard that more or less the Jewish missions were organized, but all the UN and all those kind of missions, they were like catastrophic. They didn't know what to do, where to start. Yeah, it's the surrounding of wars now.
Mayor, I have a question. Do you know what is happening on the ground in Ukraine? Do we know if there are still many people from the community stuck there? Do we know if anybody's trying to get them out? Do we know anything at all of what's still happening there?
Well, I heard what you hear in the news. Maybe in Israel we hear more of the Jewish community because the news are more focused on the Jews than everywhere else. So what we hear here is that there's still a Jewish community. There's some rabbis that are holding their community in the middle of the war and trying to help as much as possible. And there's the hospital, the field hospital, that the Israel and Zaka and Natsala are trying to take out everyone they can.
Zaka is a Orthodox organization, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Does anybody have another question? So let me ask you something that doesn't have to deal now with Ukraine. You live in Beersheba, and there was a terrorist attack there. Can you tell us how the situation is now? How do you feel?
Well, now it's not better. Now that we are in the middle of Pesach, that it's together with the middle of the Ramadan, things are a little bit hit. There have been, like yesterday, they were like buses in Jerusalem that were thrown like heavy rocks all over, and it's catastrophic what's happening in Jerusalem now. And we here in Beersheba, we live among the Bedouin community, and it's a little bit hardcore sometimes. Yeah. But we are for the long term here, so.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Hannah.
They say that the Birkat Kohanim that always have like over 100,000 people, it was less than half. People are afraid, and they're making a whole story with the Al-Aqsa that it's not even true, and they're making such a story that Jordan has been criticizing Israel and Russia has been criticizing Israel, and it's all lies. In reality, I mean, nothing special happened, but people are afraid, and I'm very sad that the Birkat Kohanim, that's always, you've been there. Remember when we went with the flags also, Yom Yerushalayim, that it becomes so full. It was less than half the people this time. It was considered empty, really. So it breaks our heart to know that they can still harm us in such a way for nothing.
Yeah, we heard the news today. They were today the Birkat Kohanim. It's a very huge event in Pesach, in all the the festivities, and yeah, they gather in the mosque with rocks, preparing to not letting us do what we do, but we will keep doing it.
Amen. Does anybody else have a question? No?
Just a comment, kol hakavod to both of you. Yasher koach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking also from your time and in your holiday in Hol HaMoed and coming to talk to us. But that way we feel a little bit part of you too. So toda rabba.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meir and
Thank you
Tamar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, we really learn a lot, and you know, we'll keep in touch. Chag Sameach, and I hope everything will be fine.
We're waiting for you, everybody, here in Israel.
Yeah, we are looking forward to being there. Amen. Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ladies, for letting me hang out with you from a very hot Israel. Moadim lesimcha.
Thank you, Rolene, for joining us.
Hey, Rolene.
You,
Bye-bye.
Goldie, for putting together such an amazing Zoom, really. I didn't expect it to be so thorough and so emotional.
You know what? I'm glad it was recorded because it was very interesting. People do not know.
Yeah. And it's like connecting the dots with what we do in Israel. You know, this is like where everything starts.
Yeah.
Who would you like me to send the recording to?
I know Gina wants it because she wants to send it to Los Angeles. You know, many people were not there, and you can send it to me and then I'll send it, you know.
Well, so maybe we'll send it to Gina, Mireille, and you, and then
Yeah.
figure out.
And Judith, yeah.
Okay. Will do.
You stop the recording, right? Hello.
A second.